Hello and welcome to a new episode of The Bike Show, where we will be taking a look at the updated range of dirt bikes from KTM and checking out the slowest, most affordable and yet also at the moment the most exclusive of MV Agusta two-wheelers in the country. Last week you may remember that I was camped in some woods on the outskirts of Berlin because it was Motorrad Days 2022. Well, I'm still camped in some woods and the wind is still blowing, so no filming outside, which means once more I'll just have to give you a flavour of what the Motorrad Days Festival was all about from the glamorous interior of my Venudio Studivan. Oh well, Motorrad Days. Quite a few South Africans will have visited the event over the years, which originally took place in Seefeld in Austria back in 2001, after which it moved to Garmisch-Partenkirchen, where it was held for 18 consecutive years until COVID interrupted its run and the event was cancelled in 2020 and 2021. It is now back, but has moved to Berlin, which also happens to be the home of BMW's main motorcycle factory. And in a rare move, the factory was open to the festival goers who could take a guided tour of the facility and get an idea of what goes on in the making of their pride and joy. Obviously, not all models will have been made there, but the same technology and engineering processes will be closely replicated at BMW's other plants around the world. The festival itself was held at the BMW Messe, or trade show halls, and its summer garden, so there was a nice mix of outside and inside happenings. I showed you in detail last week a couple of the excellent custom R18 builds that greeted everyone as they entered the event, from where they could veer off into a hall featuring aftermarket producers of everything from tyres to exhausts and all points in between. You couldn't help but notice though that BMW riders obviously do a lot of long distance travelling, because the largest selection of aftermarket products was in the form of luggage, and it was this stuff and not the fancy performance bits and bobs that attracted the most interest. Elsewhere, BMW had set out its entire model range where you could clamber all over your favourite one and persuade yourself that you absolutely have to have it in your garage. Just to make sure you were right in your choice, there was the opportunity to take your chosen model for a test ride around Berlin as well. After riding the new electric CE 04 a few weeks ago, I was glad to see that the CE 02 concept was there. Presumably this will be the next model in the inevitably expanding electric range from BMW. If the 04 is the equivalent of a 400cc petrol scooter, then this is obviously aimed at the 200cc market and an even younger potential audience, hence the removable skateboard that also serves as rider footrests. Obviously the 02 is aimed very much at the youth market and the same sort of demographic that might be tempted by something like Honda's Little Grom, but with this technology you'd have to imagine that these will be some very privileged youths with very rich parents. Or else they've got weekend jobs that pay serious money, because I can't see this being considered as affordable for the vast majority of youngsters who have a skateboard. Cost issues aside, it's another clean and fresh design from BMW and has a look somewhere between motorcycle and scooter, and it's quite different from the CE 04. It is still only a concept, but given that the 04 made it into production quickly and remarkably faithfully to the original concept, you'd have to think that this has a great chance of being made very soon and staying close to this look, albeit with mirrors and fenders and all the other legal gubbins that will undoubtedly spoil its uncluttered lines somewhat. BMW has released some numbers for the concept as well, also suggesting that it's well on its way to becoming a reality. So this 120 kilogram scooter will be capable of 100 kilometers an hour and will have a range of just over 90 k's. For something designed to nip between skate park, burger joint and home, or dare I say school or college, that's more than enough. Elsewhere in the Motorrad Days grounds, you could witness some incredible riding skills from a variety of disciplines as shows were put on by trials experts, FMX and street bike stunt riders, and of course Motodrome, the world's longest running wall of death show, was there with its head-spinning, gravity-defying feats of skill and bravery. The event ran over the Saturday and Sunday, but if you managed to get there early enough on the Friday, then you could make it a full 3-day extravaganza, because the BMW Pure and Crafted Festival took place at the same venue with some big bands on the Friday evening. BMW is very close to racking up a hugely important birthday, because in 2023, next year of course, BMW Motorrad will be 100 years old. Yes, its first ever bike, the R32, made its debut in Berlin at the city's motor show 99 years ago in 1923, and in the corner of the hall with all the new models, an example of this bike that began the journey for BMW Motorrad was stood, hinting at what will surely be an even bigger, more celebratory BMW Motorrad Days festival next year. I suppose it would make sense for BMW to host the event in Berlin once again in 2023, because this is obviously where it all began, and the factory is there. Although the BMW Group Classic Museum is down in Munich, and so a visit to that to see for yourself the timeline of bikes from the last 100 years would make perfect sense to celebrate the birthday event. Berlin is a wonderful city, no doubt, and the surrounding areas are covered in forests and lakes, so it was much prettier than I was expecting, but if I'm honest, I preferred it in Garmisch. It's more beautiful there. The riding is way better thanks to all the mountains, and the outside tented marquee kind of vibe I think just suited the festival that bit more. Anyway, back to the R32 that was, as I said, sat very humbly, almost apologetically in the corner of the hall that had all the new models, and it wasn't attracting the attention it deserved, given that it represents Genesis for the brand. As you can see, it has all the hallmarks of many BMWs of today. So you've got a flat twin engine, 494 cc's in this case, and capable of churning out 8.5 horsepower at 2200 RPM. Not much, you might think, but back in 1923, its ability to propel you up to 95 k's an hour was the stuff of dreams. There is of course a shaft drive, and there is a wet sump that was leading technology at a time when most bikes were using a total loss oiling system. There's a trailing link front fork with a leaf spring, while the rear is rigidly mounted. Sat next to this seminal model was this multiple world speed record holding supercharged 750 that was derived from a R37. In 1929 it managed 216 kilometers an hour, and 6 years later in 1935 it had managed 256 k's an hour. The keen-eyed amongst you may have noticed no front brakes on this little rocket ship, so you needed a fair amount of bravery and a lot of space to come to a stop after grabbing your new world record. Getting and holding on to these speed records was great for BMW's marketing back in the day, so maybe the juxtaposition of this with its first ever model is trying to tell us something about the future perhaps. Obviously that's probably completely wishful thinking on my behalf, as BMW's performance-related marketing these days is done via its S and M1000RR, racing in World and National Superbike Championships, and in the World Endurance Series, where it recently won at the Spa round of the championship. To celebrate these efforts, the World Superbike riders made an appearance for some Q&A sessions, which went down very well with the press and the public alike. As did the whole event really, because I didn't speak with anyone who wasn't having a great time, though the beautiful weather obviously helped. If you're a BMW rider, then this event is definitely one of those that you really need to make the effort to get to at least once. So perhaps next year's version and its celebration of a century of BMW Motorrad production will be the one for you. Right, after this break we switch from German to Italian and then Indian.